evening, my name is Amina Hinda, coming to you from CBATV studios in Hargeisa. This is our news at 8. A UN delegation heads to Galmudug state of Somalia. Kenya says KDF destroyed Al-Shabab base in Mandera. The police cracked down on Russian protests against jailing of Kremlin foe Alexei Navalny. The WHO warns of diseases spreading in Tigray because of conflict. And Darfur holds Sudan back with threat of new violence. A UN delegation is expected to travel to Somalia, the administrative city of Galmudug state of Somalia, to have a meeting with the regional state leader Qorqor to resolve political disagreements between Somalia's political stakeholders.
While efforts are still underway to resolve the political disagreements between the federal government of Somalia and its member states, the UN Special Representative to Somalia, James Iswan, is expected to travel to Somalia, the administrative capital city of Galmudug state of Somalia. The UN representative Somalia's trip is part of a recent regional trip to meet with the regional state leaders to find a lasting solution for political disputes between the federal government and opposition presidential candidates. The federal government had announced that they will hold the parliamentary and presidential elections on time without delay, though some regional state leaders and other presidential candidates denounced it and wanted the federal government to hold of what they have described as a unilateral election in the country.
The Somalia security forces have tightened security in Mogadishu. The security forces have not disclosed why security was being tightened, but seems to be part of its efforts to maintain security in the region.
For the past hours, the Somalia security forces have started to tighten security in Mogadishu, the capital city of Somalia. The security forces conducted the operation in several districts and checkpoints in the region. The operation, which seems to be part of Somalia's efforts to maintain security in the region, is being scrutinized by public and private vehicles, as well as questioning the suspects. The Somalia security forces urge the public to give a hand with the police to mitigate future terrorist attacks. This comes days after escalating insecurity in the city, in which some of the government officials were killed for the past few days. The insecurity in Mogadishu comes as the country prepares for general elections in this year, and their accusation is that the government has been slow to respond to security issues. In this week, the District Commissioner of Hodan Abdul Karim Dagachun was assassinated in Mogadishu just hours later of his return to Mogadishu from Turkey, where he has been undergoing treatment.
Somali officials and the Uganda People's Defense Forces claimed killing 189 Al-Shabab fighters late Friday and in the early hours of Saturday in an operation in southern Somalia.
Lower Shabelle Governor Abdul Kadir Mohammed Noor CD said Ugandan soldiers under the African Union mission in Somalia, AMISOM, using attack helicopter gunships have killed nearly 200 Al-Shabaab militants. Earlier, the Ugandan Army's deputy spokesman, Dekeo Akiki, said the soldiers we killed at least 189 Al-Shabaab fighters in the operation and destroyed 2 mounted weapons and motorbikes in separate fire attacks. Governor CD said the strikes, along with ground assaults by the joint troops, occurred Friday and the early hours of Saturday in a string of villages between Qoryole and Janale districts in the southern Somali region of Lower Shabelle. The militias were struck in their hideouts in the villages of Sigale and Dimale, just over 100 kilometers southwest of the capital, Mogadishu, Noor said. A statement from the Ugandan army said that during the operation, a large number of military hardware and items used by the terrorists were also destroyed. The UPDF also disrupted an Al-Shabaab meeting, injuring several terrorists in Donka Dafedo, which is 7 kilometers from Janale town, the statement added. AMISOM has been in Somalia for more than 10 years, keeping the peace and supporting Somalia's government to fend off attacks from Al-Shabaab militants, which aims to topple the government and impose its own harsh interpretation of Islamic Sharia law.
The Egyptian government has been stepping up its long-standing policy of destabilizing and weakening Ethiopia by providing full support to anti-peace elements and pitting neighbors against it, according to a top Ethiopian diplomat.
An Ethiopian official who holds a high position in the Ethiopian Foreign Ministry and asked for anonymity said that Egypt has intensified its destabilization efforts against Ethiopia and the volatile Horn of Africa region. Ethiopia's administration, led by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, who took office in 2018, has faced multiple domestic and external security challenges. Last November, Ahmed told Parliament that since he became premier, Ethiopia has witnessed 14 ethnic and religious conflicts, resulting in the deaths of thousands and displacements of millions of people. According to him, all those conflicts were manufactured, instigated, and led by Ethiopian armed and unarmed forces bent on thwarting his administration's political, social, and economic reform agenda in order to trigger a regime change or failed state. Despite strong opposition from Egypt and Sudan, Ethiopia is planning to begin the second phase of filling this August. Early power generation is slated to start this January or February. According to the Ethiopian government, the sole aim of the Gumuz militia, which has been trying to block the main road leading to the dam, is to trigger a civil war in the region and beyond, and eventually delay or thwart the dam's construction. Last week, Ethiopian Foreign Ministry spokesman Dina Mufti accused Sudan of deploying its army further into the contested region and warned that Ethiopia's peaceful approach to the dispute has limits.
The Egyptian government has been stepping up its long-standing policy of destabilizing and weakening Ethiopia by providing full support to anti-peace elements and pitting neighbors against it, according to a top Ethiopian diplomat. The World Health Organization is warning that conflict in Ethiopia's northern Tigray province and the consequent disruption of health services could lead to the spread of deadly diseases there. Ethiopia's November's military assault on Tigray had caused a major break in the humanitarian pipeline. The United Nations estimates that over 4.5 million people, about half of them children, need assistance.
Ethiopia's November military assault on Tigray has caused a major break in the humanitarian pipeline there. The United Nations estimated that over 4.5 million people, about half of them children, need assistance. The WHO and other agencies have been granted only limited access to the region. WHO officials who recently visited the area say many hospitals and clinics are only partially functioning. Healthcare workers have been displaced and essential services have been disrupted. WHO Health Emergency Officer Teresa Zakaria warns that disruption of essential health care has severe consequences for the population, particularly children. From January to November last year, over 400 cases of measles in children were reported, she said. With disruptions to routine vaccination, this number may increase significantly in the near future. Over 9,000 cases of malaria were recorded, and when compounded with malnutrition, fatally due to the malaria among children can increase up to the threefold.
Stephen Townsend, the commander of the U.S. Africa Command, wrapped a 5-day visit to East Africa, which included stops to Djibouti, Somalia and Kenya, as well as to the USS Makin Island, operating off the coast of Somalia. The trip, which was Stephen Townsend's first visit to the African continent in 2021, demonstrated U.S. Africa Command's commitment to East African partners and proved the commander with the opportunity to visit the Joint Task Force Squads, the organization tasked with overseeing repositioning of U.S. forces, while meeting with commanders, forces and partners in the region. Our strategy in East Africa relies on partnerships, Townsend said. The East African and international partners are working towards a secure environment in Africa that enables political and economic development. The U.S. Africa Command continues to do its part. Africa faces threats from terrorist groups such as the Al-Qaeda-affiliated Al-Shabab. It has also emerged as a front for global power competition, where both China and Russia are using aggressive diplomatic, economic and military means to expand their access and influence. While in Djibouti and Kenya, Townsend and Thresher recognize U.S. forces in the region and the effect their actions have on mission successes in East Africa, underscoring that U.S. forces in East Africa remain poised to respond to threats, deter aggression, and support partners while advancing the U.S. and regional security. Thresher's participation on the trip highlighted the emphasis on the need for professional, well-trained enlisted corps for partner forces and how it's foundational for any nation's military success. He recognized U.S. forces and spoke with Somali military leadership about training possibilities. The U.S. Africa Command training continues to remain a competitive advantage in an era of global competition. His trip also coincided with the withdrawal of troops from America and subsequent deployment to various countries in East Africa. The US has been responsible for training and equipping the Somali National Army by specifically working closely with the Danab Special Forces. Even with the exit from Somalia, the US has been working closely with the Somali National Army and have launched close to 6 airstrikes since the beginning of 2021. It is not clear if the troops will be brought back following the change of guard in the United States of America. Sudan hoped to begin a new year with tranquility just weeks after the US lifted crippling sanctions and allowed Khartoum back into the international arena. But renewed violence last week, in which at least 250 people were killed and another 3,500 displaced, according to the UN Refugee Agency, meant that Sudanese officials were on Friday back on the ground seeking peace solutions. A statement from Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok's office said a high-level government delegation had been sent to West Darfur to seek facts on how a stabbing incident snowballed into an ethnic clash. Darfur had been restive during the Omar al-Bashir years, but after he was toppled, the transitional government under Dr. Hamdok began reaching out to rebels who had taken arms against the central government in Khartoum. Those efforts appeared to pay off when nearly all groups signed a peace deal. In the aftermath, the United Nations African Union Hybrid Peacekeeping Force, commonly known as UNAMID, ceased operations last December with a gradual transfer of duties to local security forces effectively by June this year. Darfur, which is divided into 5 regional states, is about 1,000 kilometers west of Khartoum via bad roads. Most areas rely on diesel-powered generators for electricity, the lingering scar of war. UNAMID played a role of government for more than a decade since establishment in 2007, but its continued stay, some diplomats argue, could be bad optics for a country trying to rebuild. The Sudanese Rapid Support Forces had by Friday been deployed to help restore normalcy, but it emerged that clashes snowballed widely, initially because a local commander ignored an SOS from a regional governor. In October last year, the Sudanese transitional government concluded a peace agreement with rebel groups from Darfur in October of 2020. But even then, the terms of the peace agreement have not yet been implemented on the ground. Some analysts believe that the years of war that the region witnessed have increased the state of aggression among the factions and tribes competing for resources, as well as lucrative promise of earning a government position if you sign a peace deal with the central government. Rising cases of COVID-19 infections have brought hospitals in Nigeria's commercial capital Lagos under heavy pressure to manage an influx of patients living with the virus. The country's case tally has grown significantly since December, driven by a mutant strain of the virus.
Rising cases of COVID-19 infections has brought hospitals in Nigeria's commercial capital, Lagos, under heavy pressure to manage an influx of patients living with the virus. The country's case tally has grown significantly since December, driven by a mutant strain of the virus. In the last 24 hours, Nigeria recorded 1,633 coronavirus infection cases. The number represents one of the highest number of cases in the country so far. In order to give needed attention to the patients who are down with the virus, some medical workers have had to stay on duty for days.
Some of us here, we don't even sleep at night because we have calls that we have to go and attend to. Some of us don't leave. We stay in the hospital 2-3 days, some 5 days in a week, only to go on weekends.
The second wave has created a medical oxygen crisis in the country as many patients need to be assisted to breathe. In Lagos alone, demand has gone from 700 to 350 oxygen tanks a day due to the high level of infections recorded there.
We've never not had enough oxygen. We've been close to not having enough, and we've been stretched, but we've never actually been in a situation where we have patients that need oxygen and there's no oxygen.
Earlier on Friday, President Muhammadu Buhari approved $17 million for the setting up of oxygen gas plants in 38 locations across Nigeria in a bid to enhance the treatment of COVID-19 patients who need oxygen. Medical oxygen is the primary treatment for the majority of patients who are suffering severe COVID-19 symptoms. Kamel Sadiq, CBATV.
Representatives of rival Libyan camps have begun talks in Morocco as part of ongoing efforts to bring an end to nearly a decade of conflict in Libya since Muammar Gaddafi was killed in 2011. The oil-rich country has been driven by civil war since the NATO-backed uprising that ousted the long-time ruler.
Representatives of rival Libya camps have begun talks in Morocco as part of ongoing efforts to bring an end to nearly a decade of conflict in Libya since Muammar Gaddafi was killed in 2011. Oil-rich Libya has been driven by civil war since the NATO-backed uprising that ousted their long-time ruler. The country is divided between the United Nations-recognized Government of National Accord, which is based in the capital, Tripoli, and backed by Turkey, and the Libyan National Army (LNA), while a House of Representatives, which does not recognize the Tripoli administration, is based in the east. When it comes to international backers, Turkey, Qatar, and Italy support the Tripoli-based government, while the United Arab Emirates and Egypt backed General Khalifa Haftar. Russia, Turkey, and the UAE and other states were accused by the United Nations last month of blatantly defying the international arms embargo on Libya. A fragile ceasefire between the two sides agreed in Geneva last October has largely held despite threats by Eastern military strongman Khalifa Haftar to resume fighting. The meeting in the Moroccan capital town of Bosnika, south of capital Rabat, brings together 13 representatives from the House of Representatives and 13 from the Tripoli-based High Council of States, which advises the GNA. The talks at the event are expected to center on appointment to the country's key institutions, already the focus of previous talks in Morocco in recent months, such as the Electoral Commission, the Central Bank, and the Anti-Corruption Commission. Previous talks have failed. In March 2015, the United Nations Support Mission in Libya unveiled a 6-point plan to end the crisis, including the formation of a transitional unity government until a new constitution is adopted and elections held. Kamil Sadiq reporting for CBATV.
And used force to break up rallies across Russia on Saturday, as tens of thousands of protesters ignored extreme cold and police warnings to demand the release of Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny. Navalny had called on his supporters to protest after being arrested last weekend as he returned to Russia from Germany for the first time since being poisoned with a nerve agent he says was slipped to him by state security agents in August. The authorities had warned people to stay away from Saturday's demonstrations, saying they risked catching COVID-19 as well as prosecution and possible jail time for attending an authorized event. But protesters defied the ban, and in at least one case in temperatures below -50°C turned out in force. In central Moscow, reporters estimated up to 40,000 people had gathered in one of the biggest unauthorized rallies for years. Police were seen roughly detaining people, bundling them into nearby vans. It was unclear what effect the protests, which stretched across Russia's 11 time zones amid sub-freezing temperatures, would have on the government of President Vladimir Putin, who remains popular and largely without any political rival. The Kremlin has engineered constitutional changes that pave the way for him to potentially stay in power until 2036. But the turnout of tens of thousands of people from Moscow to Vladivostok showed the attraction of Navalny's crusade against corruption. There was no immediate comment from the Kremlin, which had previously called the protest illegal and the work of provocateurs. And our sports presenter Abdiaziz Guled reports that Paris Saint-Germain moved 3 points clear at the top of Ligue 1 and boosted their goal difference with a thrashing of 10-man Montpellier on Friday. Kylian Mbappe scored twice with Neymar and Mauro Icardi also on target for Pochettino's side.
Paris Saint-Germain moved 3 points clear at the top of the Ligue 1 and boosted their goal difference with a thrashing of 10-man Montpellier on Friday. Kylian Mbappe scored twice and Neymar and Mauro Icardi also on target for Mauricio Pochettino's side. Montpellier goalkeeper Jonas Omlin was sent off with the game goalless. Omlin was shown a yellow card for bringing Mbappe down outside of the box, but that was made red card after the referee viewed the pitch side monitor. Mbappe broke the deadlock soon after with knee touch from dinged finish from Angel Di Maria's pass. PSG then added 3 second-half goals in as many minutes. Karim Benzema scored twice as Real Madrid recovered from their shocked Spanish Cup exit by beating Alves. Real, who was stunned by third division Alcoyane in the Copa del Rey on Wednesday, took the lead through Casemiro's header. Benzema thumped in his first before Eden Hazard struck in a third for the visitors. Joselo pulled one back with a header, but Benzema made it 4-1 with a curled finish. Victor moved second-placed Real Madrid within 4 points of La Liga leaders Atletico Madrid, who have 2 games in hand. Real boss Zinedine Zidane was not on the sidelines for his game after testing positive for coronavirus. Wolverhampton Wanderers have signed striker William Jose on loan from Real Sociedad until the end of the season. The Brazilian has scored 62 goals in 170 appearances since joining the La Liga side in 2016, including 6 during the 2020-2021 campaign. Wolves have the option to buy the 29-year-old in the summer. Jose will provide an extra option in the attacking for Nuno Espirito's side, with the Mexican forward Raul Jimenez out with a fractured skull. Jose is now expected to be available for Wednesday's Premier League game against Chelsea.
Thank you. That's all we have for you for tonight. My name is Amina Hinda. Good night.